Eric Wisson's case, the dark started. 2014, David Brohol and Arto Leppanen made an investment in Solar Fire, a limited liability organized under the law of Finland as before investment parted as follow. Eric Wisson's 60%, 600,000 shares. Ava Wisson's 40%, 40,000 shares. Arto wants to invest in 2014 for 15%. Soon after, David contacts SolarFire while negotiation with Arto is ongoing and also wants to invest. Arto is not a random investor. He represents an accelerator called East Wings, which is part of a governmental program for startup, which will be a match funding from the government. David is an entrepreneur, CEO of Grill Tech in Sweden, making turbine technology. He is interested in solar fire potential to power our sea system. Arto puts 15k and David puts 7.5k and the government put 50k in grants and loans. This acceleration will permit a quick A round. According to me, there is two details relevant in the future. First, at the time we are making these deals, Arto is drafting a document, a new shareholders agreement based on the government Vigo model, so we think it's legit. In this deal, Arto changes the definition of shares' original purchase price. This is a glossary term. In the government template, the definition is simply the price you paid when you got the shares first. Arto then changes it to €5 a share, which is a significant change because the original purchase of the shares were €0.05667. Second detail, Arto didn't propose any precise way for anyone else to get any shares. Urs, Lauren, Will, and Arno. But the shareholders' agreement would propose something vague about them having shares later. At that moment, we didn't think it would matter. We could just do it later, and they already signed. In autumn 2014, this agreement is signed by these people. Eric, 600,000 shares. Ava, 400,000 shares. David and Arto together, 176,471 shares, plus veto power on every legal processes. Lauren, Urs, Will, and Arno, no shares. There is the promise to a quick A round, so this makes sense, as the government also promised 50% match funding on the A round, according to the accelerator program, plus East Wing would help structure and do the A round, putting 50k to help the A round happen. As part of the deal, Ardo gets 10k immediately paid by SolarFire for the acceleration service and upfront. I paid it. I had few lunches and discussion with Arto, and he didn't bother to do anything. Plus, he said that I shall stop talking to him. He's not going to advise anymore. I stopped talking to him, and he doesn't come to any shareholders meeting. At that moment, we didn't think there is any connection whatsoever between David and Arto. David joins the board. Eric, Ava, David. In 2015, David pays 20k engineering service to SolarFire to do the numerical model for RSC system. We deliver good work for him. We deliver good work to him, sorry. After that, the conversation with David switches. He talks to us about deals in West Africa that he's working on. He repeatedly asks us to deliver small documents of engineering extras. From 2015 to 2019, this continues and we do it for free. It's a little amount of work, whatever, we will do it. Plus, a lot of time, these are documents that are useful to us too. Context is always that David is also claiming that he's talking with investors. I interpret that for investment for R&D. All this time, all that exists from what I know is this improvised pipe in a shed that Grill Tech in Sweden is making. And SolarFire is focused on the oven project and basically its own projects. David is just phoning sometimes to ask for plans and docs. In 2017, we meet David's business partner Christian Erlandsen in Stockholm, Sweden, and it starts to go to the next level. Christian proposes the real planning of a 50 megawatt power plant. In this meeting are present Eric, Arno, Ava, David, Christian, plus two representatives of a thermal oil company. Christian and David came at us with huge power plant project and proposed to collaborate.
Yeah. And
this is where we are.
Yeah, the meeting with Christian could have been 2016. So anyways, the details we can correct later.
Okay.
And then like we're already collaborating with David. Like so we have this agreement to like collaborate technologically. So the meeting, so it's not just Christian and David coming to us for a collaboration. Like David's on our board, and we have an agreement with his company to collaborate technologically. So this is a sort of, so what Christian brings is a sort of extension of that. And at that time, I think he was like, had it working on a deal in Myanmar. Or, yeah, he had this, anyways, and then it gets like, he had this thing called, a company called ERG that was supposed to be putting in the money at some point, I think in Singapore. But we can go through the deal, but we can go through the details because it's all in email. Okay. But the like this is the first time they kind of like, that there's like planning to make a power plant. And that was the meeting about. Like David pulls out like a planning document and starts like planning an actual commissioning of a multi-megawatt power plant, right? Which we obviously don't do, right? We make these small ovens and like all we can fabricate at that time is with a like corner shop welder in Kenya, in rural Kenya. So this is where it starts to be like, why are we planning something with technology that doesn't exist yet, right? Like the place for projects at this stage of development would be like just opportunities. So it's good to know about opportunities, it's good to know about potential clients. It's especially good to reach out to clients, industrial clients who could also invest in the R&D, right? And then also provide a pilot project as part of the deal. So there's lots of like legitimate things that can happen. But all we do is discuss the focus on like the actual implementation of a multi-megawatt project in West Africa. Like David kind of like makes the planning and implementation document and like the schedule and tries to put as much numbers on it and so on, like a summary of a project of building something, which to Arno and I, we're confused about the whole meeting afterwards. Like we even talk to each other like, okay, this is not an engineering meeting, right? That's literally what we say to each other. But okay, but David's not an engineer, Christian's not an engineer, so maybe like, so at that time we're like, okay, maybe they don't really know how engineering's done. That was kind of our, and like if they bring clients and they bring money, okay, then we can take care of the engineering. That's kind of our conclusion about the meeting.
Christian and David came at us with a huge power plant project and proposed to collaborate. We have already an agreement with David's company for collaboration. At that time, Christian is just bringing an extension of this collaboration. Yes. This meeting was not an engineering meeting, nor an R&D brainstorm meeting. It was a planning meeting. Christian and David put up a plan to start commissioning this power plant. It was the actual implementation of a technology that didn't exist yet. A technology that would need to have multiple engineering meetings and raise investment for R&D before.
Yeah, exactly.
Did I summarize it well?
Exactly. And and like they have locations, right? They have project locations, maps.
They already had project locations, maps, timeline.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. And like and then wanting to get the power purchase agreement.
Was there.
And like the everything is focused on getting the power purchase agreement.
They wanted to get the
power purchase agreement. That's like the license to sell electricity to the state.
Purchase agreement. License to sell electricity to the states.
So like a similar situation would be like you're part of a deal. Everything's focused on getting a license to build a building. Mm-hmm. But zero architecture or engineering work about the building, and just like guessing how much it's going to cost, but promising the government we're going to do the building at a given cost, right?
They were cutting steps. Okay, so
from this point on, I'm talking about R&D investment. Right? And they keep on talking about the power purchase agreement. So we start from here on, we start to like be talking past each other. Like I'm trying to bring them back. I'm trying to like teach them how engineering is done, basically, from my perspective. Because David has a law degree, and Christian is like some salesman. So neither of them have any clue how engineering is done. So I'm trying to like explain the steps that are needed. You know, numerical study, and like obviously our company can't take the liability of a multi-million euro project, right? So I'm also trying to explain to them that to actually deliver the technology, we have to make a new company that is backed by people with deep enough pockets to cover the liability, right? So that can make sense. Like if a huge industrial company or huge deep pocket investors want to bet on the technology, okay, we can make a new company, and then do the R&D, right? And then that new company can deliver the projects because it can cover the liability. There's no way Solar Fire, with a revenue of like less than 100,000 at these years, right, is going to cover 100 million euro liability, right? It just doesn't make sense. So I'm trying to teach them how engineering is done. I'm also trying to teach them how the basic finance is done, and David's older than me, doing business much longer than me. He's supposed to be the business angel teaching me how to do business. And Christian is like even older than David, and says he's like set up telecom companies all over Africa.
Okay.
So it's starting to not make sense that how do these people not know how business is done?
Okay. Well, from this point, I'm talking about R&D investment,
Yeah.
but they wanted to skip that step. Obviously, our small company cannot deliver that kind of multi-million-dollar technology. We shall make a new company to do all the R&D backed with deep pocket investor, and maybe yes, but Solar Fire, as small as it is, cannot take that liability.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, with deep pocket investor. Okay,
So that's the setup.
they don't listen to you on that.
Yeah, they don't listen to me. They start to like argue with me. So then
But they don't listen.
Yeah. So I'm trying to negotiate. So then I start trying to negotiate, like, okay, before there's any PPA licenses signed or whatever, I'm trying to negotiate a 20,000 euro numerical model study, right? Which is going to conclude that we can't do the project, right? Like a feasibility study of the technology and the financial situation and everything. Right? It's going to conclude that we can't do the project. And I tell them that, right? Like we can do a feasibility study. I can guarantee that it's just going to conclude we can't do the project. But it's the starting point. It's the starting point to discuss with somebody who can, because it's going to still be like we can still deliver. Yeah, sorry.
I try to negotiate to do a feasibility study.
Yeah, this is what I'm trying to do from this point on, because they talk about a project implementation of a technology that doesn't exist. First step is feasibility study, right? Basic engineering step.
For them to, for us to see. No, I try to negotiate to do a feasibility study while they are pushing for PPA.
The PPA, and then they want us like, and then building up to like signing licenses and stuff.
Building up to sign license.
Like for our technology that doesn't exist.
While the technology doesn't exist.
Yes.
What do they respond to that?
So then it kind of builds up. So first they're like, okay, we're gonna get first they kind of do this like runaround where they're like, okay, well first we're gonna raise a bit of money, then you'll get the money to do the feasibility study, right?
Okay, so they agree.
Well, they agree that if the study needs to be done at some point.
They agree the study of feasibility needs to happen at some point.
Yeah, but they want to raise money before.
At some point.
Right, so they say, well, first we raise money, and then you do the feasibility study. And I'm like, how the fuck do we raise money without a basic study?
They want to raise money to then do that feasibility study.
So they want to get the PPA. So their whole thing is we get the PPA first, then we raise money based on the PPA, then we start engineering. So it's like it's totally inverted.
They inverted everything from their plan. They want to get the PPA first, then raise money without any engineering studies.
And then they say we'll get our money somehow after that.
And then only
Once they've like raised the money,
make that feasibility
would we start any actual engineering?
feasibility study.
Because until then, like the meeting in Stockholm is just pure guesswork.
Mm-hmm.
Like Arno, they're just like David makes the project implementation plan, and then just asks me and Arno to guess
Mm-hmm.
numbers. So
Mm-hmm.
we're like, okay, well, yeah, it could be that, it could be this.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's a start.
Okay.
It's a start of like okay,
So how do you react to that?
So then it kind of stays in that configuration for a while.
Okay.
Of that they're still trying to get the PPA, they're moving the PPA forward. There's like then they,
So you agree with their plan to
No,
do
I
PPA
don't
first?
agree. I don't agree.
Okay,
I say we're not making any commitments. So I'm like we're not making any commitments at all until there's the feasibility study made.
I said Solar Fire cannot make any commitment without the feasibility study done first.
Yeah, so for me, I'm like, plan is first feasibility study,
Mm-hmm.
then commitments
Mm-hmm.
and taking some liability or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously raising the R&D financing and
Mm-hmm.
building a company. So I talk about always we got to make a new company
Mm-hmm.
that can do this industrial projects
Okay.
with industrial partners
Okay.
who are credible. So for me, I'm trying to like put it on a credible track.
Sure.
And then they keep on talking. They're always like for a while they're always like yeah we'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
But first we get the PPA and raise and get some money,
Okay.
and so it's all about. And then they tell me like at some point, and then they tell like so. But I'm zero commitment, zero liability.
That's what you said.
Yeah,
At that
zero
point, you said
commitment.
Solar Fire cannot make any commitment without the feasibility study done first.
Which is going to conclude that we can't do it ourselves.
Yeah, that's
just
what
gonna
you
explode.
think.
Yeah.
Anyway, but like this,
Yeah.
this
No,
is,
just like we can't take on multi-million euro
sure,
liability. With
sure.
Yeah.
That's okay. They don't listen. I try to negotiate to do feasibility study while they are pushing for PPA and building up to sign licenses, while the technology doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
They agree to the study of feasibility needs to happen at some point, but they want to raise money to then do that feasibility study.
Yeah. So
They
eventually.
inverted everything. From their plan, they want to get the PPA first, then raise money without any engineering studies, and then only make the feasibility studies.
And yeah, do the engineering.
To that, I said Solar Fire cannot make any commitment without the feasibility study done first. Okay, what happened next?
And like, and it's not that it's not even that they want to get the license, raise the money, and do the feasibility study. It's they want to get the license, raise the money, and then just like make the project happen
Wait.
assuming it's feasible.
No, you said they agree the study of feasibility needs to happen at some
Yeah,
point.
yeah, but like in their framework, it's not a feasibility study. It's just like doing the engineering.
Yeah. Okay.
Like the point of a feasibility study is like, can you do it or not? And if not, then you don't raise money to do it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So in their framework, like there's no the word feasible doesn't exist.
In their framework, the word feasible doesn't seem to exist.
Exactly. And like so
They
because
just
the license commits them to install.
Make the project.
Yeah, the license commits them to make a power plant with 24-hour thermal storage, because that's the added advantage over PV, right? So they commit to do a power plant with 24-hour storage in 18 months.
Okay. Well, let's just like right now you have this disagreement. They rushing. You say slow down, guys. What happened then?
So then they're just like okay. They're just like yeah, no, like so for a while they're like no problem, no problem. You'll get we're gonna move 800,000 euros from the United States to Norway. So now they're moving money. They have to like make there's a whole little epic.
Wait, slow down.
Yeah.
What I'm at the moment they say well, how do they respond to the fact that SolarFire cannot make any commitment? What do they do then?
Oh, also one detail is like I meet Christian in 2016, and then this process repeats itself 3 or 4 times in Ghana, Namibia, and Myanmar. I think the first one was like Myanmar. So there's like this process of like getting a PPA and then moving money happens 4 times, but each time like we're not asked to commit to anything. So we're just like hear vaguely about these deals in Namibia, Ghana, Myanmar, and they just gotta go away. Like then we hear from him again, and I'll ask David about it, like what happened to the Ghana deal, and he's like it didn't happen, right? But we weren't asked to commit to anything, so we weren't taking on any liabilities or anything. So then it's in 2019 that then they're starting to ask us to commit to do the projects and then like sign licenses for the technologies. So it's only in 2019 that it goes from like vague talk that David would like mention to me stuff, right, in a few emails, whatever.
Yeah, but you cut in steps.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like the process I described happens 4 times.
No, but like this is not the end of the process.
The process of talking about it, being focused on a PPA, and then I'm focused on the R&D, right? That happens 4 times.
Okay.
But
since when it happens 4 times?
Since 2016.
Okay, you said 2017 we meet David business.
Well, it might have been. I can look it up right now, because I just found the emails from. So here's an email from 2016, 7th month, 12th day of the 7th month, from Ordian, the retired engineer. So dear Eric, it's great now. It's great to know when that you and David have discussed the project issues and have found a way to proceed. Christian is targeting 12-month project time, but he knows this is very hard to do. If we consider this as the first project ever for both Christian and us, it is very optimistic to believe we can make it on time. However, he is experienced of Africa business and knows very well that time is something different there compared to industrial development areas like Finland and Sweden. Our role must be to assist and advise the local management in order to do things in the right order. Christian also says that Ghana, right, we're talking about Ghana in 2016,
okay, so
is much more industrialized than, for instance, Namibia, and it probably will be much more efficient in Ghana. Right, so Namibia, that's what we were talking about before. Okay. Now we're talking about Ghana. Probably be more efficient in Ghana. Now do we know very little about available skilled working force around in the country? Okay. But Christian says, just a minute, I will be satisfied if we manage to close a fair deal with ERG and Christian for this project and fulfill it. Then we have learned a lot to next part of the project. First part is divided into 5 megawatt, followed by 10 megawatt, more to 15 megawatt in total. Next part of remaining 85 megawatt will be another challenge. Let's hope Christian receives the PPA this week, right? Then we must be ready with our proposal. The on-site study will then take place as soon as possible. Formal purchase agreement before the end of January. So this is and this is coming from Ordian, the engineer, the retired engineer who invented David's technology, who's trustable. Right, so he doesn't know anything about business, and at this 2016, I don't know much about business either. Right, so for me, Christian and David are like good business people, right? But in this full email, you see, right, the exact structure I'm talking about, right? First, we had this whole thing for Namibia, which then went away. Now we're talking about Ghana, and again, let's hope Christian receives the PPA this week. So it's always these discussions always go to the PPA. Which then Christian gets, right? He's going to get the PPA this week, a license. With the license, you can then move money around the world. Because then you have this license, and you can say, oh, we're moving this money for this power project, right? So now with the PPA, you can move money around the world, but no one's ever going to go. The bankers in the United States or Norway or whatever, they're never going to go to Ghana and check if anything happened, right? So then, because we're like a startup, a new technology, whatever, it's easy to say, like the whole thing's set up that if something goes bad, they just say, oh, well, Solify couldn't do it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wait, one second. Okay. When in 2016, when Christian and David came at you with this huge power plant project, for what country was it?
So this is just a minute, and then
The first meeting. Where?
so I think it's in 2000. Yeah, I think it's in 2016.
Okay, but the first meeting, the 50 megawatt power plant, in which country it's supposed to be set?
So then the 50 megawatt one, like where then I start to be like, this is for sure money laundering or bad faith. It cannot be legitimate business anymore. Is then 2019 about Angola.
That's not my question.
Oh.
What's the first country that mentioned to you? Ghana?
I think the first one was Namibia. Yeah, I think the first one was Namibia.
In Namibia.
Yeah, and then there's this ERG thing. And then
Namibia,
Myanmar.
Africa.
Yeah.
Namibia, Africa.
Okay. The meeting was definitely in 2016 because in this email chain with Oriane, just to remember, at the Arlianda hotel meeting, that's where we met Christian. We agreed to make a project with a mutual commitment in order to convince Anna Balat that we are a strong partner. I feel this was a commitment to Christian Erlandensen, right? So they're kind of like setting up these vague commitments, right? But there's nothing signed. If this will be, because like for me, it's like, okay, talk is just talk until you sign something. So until 2019, there's nothing that's presented to sign, right? So it's always this every year. It's the same process. So it happens like 2 or 3 years. Then I start losing confidence.
This process of taking a country in Africa, Namibia, then Ghana, then Then Ghana, then Namibia, Ghana, and
there's Myanmar.
What is how do you spell that?
Like Myanmar.
Myan.
Nmar.
Nmar. Myanmar. Then Myanmar. Africa, and trying to get PPAs happens 3 times.
Plus the Angola.
Then so 4 times.
4 times, yeah.
Then Angola happens 4 times. Each time I'm arguing that feasibility needs to be solved, but they keep being vague and go always and Christian and David always want to go for PPAs first.
Yeah, and here's another letter very short from Oriane. So Oriane is definitely like an honest engineer, just trying to understand things as we. So like the fact that he's involved gives us confidence because he's a smart engineer. So like here, the proposal is fine for me. Just to remember, at the Arlanda hotel meeting, we agreed to make a project with mutual commitment in order to convince Anna Balat that we are a strong partner. I feel this was a commitment to Christian Erlandensen. So he feels like nothing's ever clear, right? If this will be in the form of a joint venture company or a joint venture mutual agreement, it may be not a big deal. It's smart to arrange our cooperation as practical as possible, ? But be sure we make clear in this proposals that we deliver knowledge and engineering work and ERG is the main contractor and our customer. I think the 140 USD hour should be reserved for the part who delivered the hours. And that we share profit and incentives, $2 million USD plus 10% on saved costs. So this is Orland as confused as me.
Orion,
yeah, because because it's never clear who's liable for whatever we're talking about, right? So he's as confused as me as like who's committing what to who and who's liable for it. Like, and so he's an experienced engineer, and so he knows enough about engineering that if you're consulting, right, and delivering knowledge and expertise, right, another bigger industrial company is actually doing the project. Right, like so if you're a small consulting company, you don't take the liability to build the fucking skyscraper, right? But maybe you can provide services for a company that does build skyscrapers, right? So that's exactly what he's talking about in this email. Is exactly what I'm talking about. It's like we're Solar Fire, we can do some good stuff. Like Arno's a real thermal engineer, right? So we can do some proper engineering. I studied math, right? We can do some numerical models, do a lot of good stuff, but we're not going to make these multi-megawatt plants, 2 million USD, then eventually they build up to 260 million USD.
that's a lot of money.
For the Angola thing. So the fact that these numbers are still relatively small, right? 5 megawatts, 2 million USD. Okay, that could be done. Like you could do a 5 megawatt because 5 megawatts is not some crazy risk.
No.
And we could do it with the.
It's still very high, to be honest.
Yeah, but it's kind of like a pilot demo project range,
sure.
right? So we can do it as like it's not a commercial project, right? We can just do it as like a demo project, a demo pilot, and so it would be like, you know, if there's an investor who wants to put in the money that we make 5 megawatts, and then if we fail, okay, the money's gone. But if we succeed, then okay, this could be huge next big thing, right? That makes sense, right? So maybe there's somebody who wants to take on that risk, or a big engineering firm, like, you know, these huge engineering firms, they could build like 5 megawatts, not big, like a nuclear reactor is like 1,000 megawatts, right?
A year, yeah.
What? No, like in power capacity.
Yeah.
So anyways, 5 megawatts is like it's ambitious, but it's like in the doable range, and then maybe we start like, and then if the timing is like depending on how it's structured, we could commit to do like 100 kilowatts and then 500 kilowatts, then a mega. Like we can kind of build it up in modules, and then if it works, we keep going. So at this stage, and anyways, but that email from Orland, right, shows that he's as confused. Like, right, what did we just who's committing who to what? Like he feels that we committed to Christian something, but there's nothing written, right? So, and this is how the scheme works. Is that if anything goes bad, they say we promise to deliver the technology and we can't, you see? So doing this money laundering with an engineering company too small to possibly do the project, right? Well then, if anything goes bad, you just point the finger at them. They're like, oh, they said they could do it, but they can't. So that's why nothing happened, right? Let's say some banker does go to Ghana to check out what actually happened on the ground and there's zero, right? Because then you can start, like on paper, you can start... people ask, oh, what happened with the money? And you could make on paper that like we started building and then realized it wasn't cost effective and stopped, right? Because investment money to do something new. That's why it's important. Like if they promised a PV project, right, with technology that exists, right? Well, then people are going to be like, well, why isn't anything in the field? Right? So you need, for the scheme to work, you need a startup innovating to explain later why nothing happened. Right? Because if you say, oh, we're just going to get PV from some Chinese company who comes and does this all the time, and then the government, like maybe some of the money is like USAID money, right? Right? You make this project, you get grants, right? Match funding, government, Africa, renewable energy, right? There's all sorts of programs about that. So you can get like money from all sorts of places and move around the investor money that you want to launder, right?
Okay, well,
so that's the scheme.
That's what you think is the scheme. It's okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm convinced is the scheme.
That's what you're convinced. But then, I'm gonna smoke.
So then the next phase is 2019. Is then they want us to commit to things like sign licenses and stuff. Like, what the hell's going on?